March 3rd, 1943, Kola Peninsula, south of Murmansk. A whiteout morning wind screams across the tundra, dragging sheets of ice against the side of a sputtering Studebaker US-6 truck. Inside, Senior Lieutenant Pavel Sidorov of the 14th Rifle Division pulls his fur collar higher, trying to keep the Arctic cold from burrowing into his bones. The convoy crawls through a narrow valley, an old supply logging road, buried under months of snow, carrying crates of rifle cartridges and replacement barrels for the regiment's battered DP-27 machine guns. The engine growls, snowflakes hammer the windshield. The temperature is low enough to freeze exposed skin in minutes. Pavel leans forward, squinting through the grimy glass. Up ahead, the lead Jaz-67 jerkily brakes. "Что за..." he mutters. "What is that?" The truck halts. The entire convoy shudders to a stop behind it. A sentry jumps down from the lead vehicle and waves frantically. "Tavarish Leutnant, Vam нужно посмотреть на это. Comrade Lieutenant, you need to see this." Pavel grinds his teeth and steps into the punishing wind. Snow lifts off the ground in horizontal sheets. His boots crunch over the crusted surface as he approaches the front of the convoy, where a strange, unnatural shape juts through the ice. At first, he assumes it's wreckage from a German reconnaissance aircraft. This far north, Luftwaffe, a Rado R-196 seaplane sometimes pushed too deep into Soviet waters and never returned. But as he draws closer, he sees the surface is not jagged aluminum. It is smooth, curved, metallic, and the curve is too perfect, like something machined with precision. The Soviet factories in Kirovsky or Chelyabinsk rarely achieved even in ideal conditions. Pavel kneels, knocking snow aside with his gloves. He touches the exposed section. It's warm. A shiver not from cold runs up his spine. "What do you think it is?" asks Corporal Yeliseyev, clutching his Mosin Nagant rifle, as if the object might leap from the ground. "Not German," Pavel mutters, "not anything I've seen." He has spent years around Soviet equipment, T-26 turrets, BT-7 hull sections, dismounted Schwach cannons. Nothing ever felt like this, smooth like ceramic, but heavy like steel. "Dig it out," Pavel orders. The soldiers form a line, passing back shovels, crowbars, even entrenching tools. They carve through layers of ice until more of the buried shape reveals itself, a rounded plate with a beveled edge, then a seam like a hatch line, then a faint stenciled marking. At first it looks like Cyrillic, then no, not quite. Private Chernov scrapes gently with a bayonet until the faint marking becomes clear. S-243, or maybe S-243, or maybe something else entirely. Could be a prototype vehicle, Yeliseyev says. Maybe Navy, maybe NKVD. Pavel tries to steady himself, but the wind gnaws at his nerves. A deep metallic echo comes from beneath the snow, like a distant hollow thum, caused by shifting ice or something settling deeper. The men instinctively step back. Pavel signals to Sergeant Oskin, "Bring the radio." The sergeant trudges over with an RBM-1 field radio, its long whip antenna trembling in the wind. He sets it down and cranks the generator while Pavel hunches over the handset. "Base, this is forward resupply convoy Delta 9. We have encountered a buried metal structure near grid 1243. Unknown origin, requesting engineering team." Static hisses. For a long moment, only the roar of the wind fills the air. Then a voice, "Delta 9, say again, unknown origin." "Yes, unknown, not German, not ours, at least not any model I've seen, possibly classified." Another crackle, then, "Hold position. Do not attempt further excavation. Engineering detachment, en route from Murmansk." Pavel lowers the handset slowly. His men exchange glances. Sergeant Oskin asks, "Lieutenant, what do we tell the men to do?" Pavel studies the object again, the exposed curve, the strange alloy, the faint warmth. He cannot shake the feeling that he's looking at something no one was meant to find. Set up a perimeter, 2 sentries on each side. No smoking, no unnecessary noise. We wait. The hours crawl by. By late afternoon, the sky turns from grey to a deep violet as the sun disappears behind the ridgeline. The wind quiets, leaving the eerie hum of the tundra. Then, faintly, a rumble, engines. A column of vehicles approaches a ZS-42 half-track, 2 sled-mounted cargo trucks, and an armoured NKVD inspection vehicle wearing the blue flashing stripe of the 2nd Directorate. The men sit up straighter. From the NKVD car steps, Major Dmitry Koslov, a stern-faced officer with a long sheepskin coat and square fur hat. 2 riflemen flank him. "Show me," he orders with no greeting. Pavel leads him to the excavation site. Koslov kneels, brushing frost away, his gloved fingers tracing the smooth surface. His expression tightens not with confusion, but with something like recognition. He exhales slowly, the vapor swirling around the brim of his hat. "This stays quiet," the major says. "No one speaks of this to anyone, not even your regimental commander." "Understood." Pavel blinks. "Major, what is it?" Koslov stands, brushing snow from his knees. "If I knew," he says softly, "we wouldn't be here." He signals his men. "Bring cutting torches, we open it tonight." Pavel feels the wind return, cold and merciless, as if the tundra itself resents what they are about to uncover. The steel beneath the snow seems almost to pulse. Something about this is wrong, deeply, profoundly wrong. And the night has only just begun. March 3rd, 1943, 22:10 hours, Kola Peninsula. The Arctic night presses down upon the excavation site like a physical weight. The wind has died, but the silence it leaves behind is worse. The men of the 14th Rifle Division stamp their feet, trying to stay warm as acetylene torches sputter to life, casting long wavering beams across the snow. Major Dmitry Koslov stands with his arms crossed, fur hat pulled low, eyes fixed on the exposed metal curve. 2 NKVD riflemen flank him, silent and unmoving, faces glacial in the torchlight. Senior Lieutenant Pavel Sidorov watches the blue flame bite into the seam. The metal glows, but refuses to melt. Corporal Yeliseyev whispers, "Lieutenant, that's not standard armor steel." "Quiet," Pavel says, though he secretly agrees. The Soviet Union used many armor grades rolled homogeneous plate, high-hardness alloys, even salvaged naval steel during shortages, but nothing behaved like this. The torches should at least scorch the surface. Instead, the metal remains eerily smooth, the frost melting off only to reform moments later. The engineer in charge, Sergeant Mechanic Anatoly Voronin, wipes sweat from his brow despite the freezing cold. "Comrade Major," he calls out, "this alloy isn't reacting normally. We should test another." Koslov cuts him off sharply. "Open it." Voronin swallows. "Yes, Comrade Major." Pavel steps closer. "Major Koslov, with respect, this doesn't look safe. What if—" Koslov's gaze snaps to him, icy and precise. "Your orders were to secure the area. Mine are to investigate. Remember your place, Lieutenant." Pavel stiffens. "Understood." The torches switch angles, biting into a second seam. The snow reflects the blue flames in ghostly patterns, dancing across rifles, trucks, and shivering men. Then a sound, a hollow clang from within the metal shell, not caused by the wind, not caused by the torches. Every soldier freezes. "Did you hear that?" someone mutters. Koslov raises a hand. "Hold the torches." The flames die. Darkness consumes them, broken only by the moonlight filtering through drifting snowflakes. For a moment, nothing moves. Then another sound, a faint rhythmic tick, 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 like metal contracting or settling, or like something mechanical struggling to wake from a long sleep. Voronin steps back. "Comrade Major, this structure has pressure inside. If it's a fuel tank or a frozen air chamber, we could trigger a rupture." Koslov considers this. For the first time, uncertainty flickers across his face, but he shakes it away. "Proceed." 2 men relight the torches. The seam glows brighter, heat radiating visibly in the frozen air. Pavel watches the metal slowly respond, not by melting, but by shifting. The plate seems to flex, microscopic movements, causing faint pops and pings. The warmth he felt earlier now makes sense. Whatever is beneath the ice retains heat unnaturally well. "Lieutenant," Yeliseyev whispers, "what if this belonged to a classified program, something not in field manuals?" Pavel exhales slowly. "Then we're reopening something that was buried for a reason." Another clang interrupts him, louder this time. The men jump. The torches flicker. "Step back," Voronin shouts. But it's too late. The metal shifts with a deep, guttural groan, like an ancient ship hull under immense pressure. Snow collapses inward as the curved plate buckles upward by a few centimeters, just enough to prove it's not fused shut. Something beneath is pushing outward, or reacting to the torch heat. Koslov's jaw tightens. Get that crowbar, force it open. A private runs forward with a heavy tool, but Pavel grabs his arm. Stop, you'll rupture it. Koslov snaps. Lieutenant Sidorov, step aside. But before the argument can escalate, the ground trembles. Just slightly, a subtle vibration that travels up boots and rifles. The men look at each other. Earthquake, a soldier whispers. No, Voronin says quietly. Local movement. Whatever we're standing on is not resting on soil. It's built on a frame. A buried structure. Maybe large. Too large. Koslov inhales sharply. Full excavation tomorrow. Tonight we open the hatch. The torch crews try again, attacking the seam with renewed effort. The heat builds. The metal creaks, groans, and finally begins to separate at one corner. Crowbar, Voronin yells. 3 men wedge tools into the gap. They strain. Boots slip on icy ground. Muscles shake under thick winter coats. Then, HSS, a sharp blast of air escapes from within the structure, blowing snow into swirling spirals. The soldiers recoil as a sour, metallic smell fills the air. Something like rust and chemical solvents, but older, staler. Pavel covers his mouth. Yeliseyev coughs violently. Even Koslov steps back. Voronin waves them away. Vent it, let it breathe. More gas seeps out slowly. The torches go out. No one ordered it, they simply sputter and die, as if the escaping air suffocated the flames. A darkness falls again. Only the thin moonlight casts a pale glow across the snow as the hatch finally shifts open by half a hand's width. Everyone stares. Inside is pure blackness. Cold, heavy, silent. Koslov nods once. Lieutenant Sidorov, you and 2 men prepare lanterns. We're going in. Pavel's skin crawls. Something deep inside him whispers that whatever lies beneath the snow was not meant to be found in wartime. Maybe not meant to be found at all. Still, he nods. Yes, Comrade Major. Behind him, the hatch emits one final metallic groan, like an unwanted door opening after decades of neglect. The darkness waits. March 3rd, 23:40 hours. The Arctic cold settles into every seam of clothing as Pavel Sidorov approaches the half-open hatch. Lanterns flicker weakly in the wind, while the men cluster around the opening. Their breaths form thick clouds in the still air, hanging for seconds before drifting upward like spirits trying to escape the earth. The hatch, if it is truly a hatch, sits recessed in the curved metal plate, now bent enough for a man to squeeze through. Frost rims the edges, but the warmth radiating from inside keeps it from sealing shut again. Pavel lifts a lantern. Its light throws long, trembling beams into the darkness below. The interior reveals itself one shadow at a time, a narrow descent, then a curved corridor angling downward. Not natural ice, not earth, definitely not an abandoned Soviet bunker. Those had standard bracing, riveted beams, electrical conduits. This is smooth, seamless, without welding marks or bolts, as if the entire shape had been cast whole, then buried. The smell is worse now, a mix of stale air, oxidized metal, and something like machine lubricant, long since dried. Lieutenant, Major Koslov orders from behind. You lead, Voronin and Yeliseyev follow. Pavel nods, though his hands tighten slightly around the lantern handle. He steps past the bent plate, one boot sinking into powdery snow inside the structure. The snow here is different, fine, dry, almost like ash. He kneels, brushing some aside. Underneath lies a metal floor with a subtle ripple pattern. Not a groove, not a grate, something deliberately machined for traction. He rises and motions to the others. They step inside. The hatch creaks behind them as the wind pushes against it. Darkness swallows their footsteps as they move deeper. The corridor curves left, then drops slightly, leading them toward a chamber. Pavel's lantern reveals the interior in fragments, ribs of reinforcement running along the ceiling, pipes trailing into the walls, a thick cable disappearing into an unseen recess. Nothing has labels, no Cyrillic markings, no German insignia, no maker's plates, nothing to identify purpose or origin. Voronin runs a gloved hand along the wall. This alloy, I've never seen anything like it. Too smooth, and the machining patterns, this isn't factory work. Pavel pauses, meaning it's not cast, not forged, it's pressed or shaped. I can't even tell. Koslov forces his way inside, brushing past the others. His face hardens as he examines the structure, but his silence gives away his unease. Lieutenant, forward. The chamber opens up suddenly, a wide circular space beneath the snowpack. The ceiling is curved overhead, cross-braced with thick metal arcs. In the centre stands a raised platform, waist-high, with a recessed panel on its surface. The lantern light dances across it, revealing cables, rotary dials, and what looks like a sealed control box. Yeliseyev whispers, This looks like equipment from a submarine. Pavel considers the idea. Some Soviet sub-projects, like the S-class or P-class boats, used experimental control panels, but nothing this smooth, nothing this polished. And why would submarine equipment be buried hundreds of kilometers inland? Voronin steps closer to the central platform. This wiring, this isn't rubber insulation. It's some kind of resin. He tugs gently. The cable barely moves, still flexible after months, maybe years underground. He kneels and brushes dust aside. Beneath the grime lies a small metal plate, flush with the surface. No text, no stamp, only a faint outline of something that might once have been engraved and worn away by time. Pavel circles around the platform. At the far end of the chamber, he notices a second hatch on the floor, circular, bolted shut with 6 locking clamps. Unlike the upper hatch, this one is sealed perfectly. Major, Pavel calls. There's another entryway down here. Koslov approaches, boots scraping softly in the silent chamber. He crouches, examining the clamps. These are military-grade clasps, precision type, but the threading is unusual. Pavel tilts his lantern. The metal shines with an oily shimmer. Do we open it? No, Koslov straightens. Not until we understand the upper chamber. As he turns back toward the platform, a faint hum vibrates through the floor. The lantern flickers. The men freeze. The vibration grows slightly stronger, not like machinery starting up, but like something shifting deep beneath them, metal expanding as it meets warmer air. Voronin's voice lowers. Pressure differential. This structure's been sealed for years. Pavel's attention snaps toward a sound, soft, rhythmic, almost like a heartbeat echoing far below. He steps back instinctively. Major, the lower hatch, something's moving beneath it. Koslov signals the others to ready their weapons, though rifles feel absurdly small in this steel cavern. Yeliseyev grips his Mosin Nagant, knuckles white. The heartbeat-like rhythm continues, faint but unmistakable. Voronin kneels again at the platform, examining a dial. This isn't electrical. No wiring for power. It's mechanical. The dial suddenly twitches. All 3 lanterns sway at once, their flames bending as if drawn by a draft from below. The heartbeat sound grows by a fraction steady, unwavering, maddeningly calm. Koslov whispers, "This isn't a machine that was left behind." Pavel slowly turns toward him. Then what is it? Koslov's eyes narrow. A machine that someone planned to come back for. The chamber seems to tighten around them. The hum deepens, vibrating through their boots, up through their legs, into their bones. Behind them, the upper hatch groans softly, as if something outside is shifting in the snow. March 4th, 1943. 25 hours. The chamber vibrates with a faint, unsettling thrum that never rises or fades, as if the structure is breathing beneath the snow. Pavel Sidorov tightens his grip on the lantern, its flame stretching sideways, in a strange pull of air that seems to come from nowhere. The other men feel it too. Yeliseyev instinctively lifts his rifle. Voronin moves toward the central platform again, and Major Koslov steps closer to the lower hatch with a measured, deliberate pace. The 6 clamps securing the circular hatch are coated in a thin layer of dust-like frost. Pavel kneels and brushes a glove across one of them. It is warm. That makes no sense. The chamber is cold enough for breath to crystallize, but the metal he touches radiates a soft, steady heat. Voronin notices. "Lieutenant, step away." Pavel does, rising slowly. The mechanic sergeant inspects the hatch. Something below is generating warmth, consistent warmth, not residual heat. He leans in closer, ear almost touching the metal. There's movement, very faint, but rhythmic, like a reciprocating pump or piston. Pavel glances at Kozlov. Major, if this is a machine, it hasn't been abandoned. Kozlov doesn't answer. The Major's eyes fix on the hatch with an expression Pavel has never seen from an NKVD officer, something between curiosity and calculation. Then Kozlov crouches, runs one finger along the rim, and inspects the frost that comes off. It melts instantly in his glove. Sergeant Voronin, can you open it? Voronin hesitates. If it's pressurized, opening it too fast could trigger a rupture or a backdraft. Can you open it? Kozlov repeats. Slowly, Voronin swallows. Yes, with care, the Major nods. Do it. Voronin signals two soldiers to bring tools. Pavel steps back, letting the mechanic work. The chamber seems to listen. Every sound echoes each metal clank, each sharp inhale, each scrape of steel on steel. The mechanic fits a long-handled wrench onto the first clamp and begins turning. The hinge resists at first, then groans open with a reluctant creak. The heartbeat-like rhythm beneath them grows slightly clearer, though still distant, like machinery buried under meters of steel. The men stiffen. Pavel feels his pulse sink strangely with the beat beneath the floor, a slow, steady thud, too regular to be natural, too soft to be any known engine. Voronin moves to the second clamp. It loosens more easily. The third follows, then the fourth. Each time a clamp releases, the air pressure in the chamber shifts, the lantern flames bending differently. Pavel notes it silently. The space below is influencing airflow, pulling it, adjusting it. At the fifth clamp, Voronin pauses. Major, before I open this last one, I need to be clear. If this chamber is sealed for environmental control, opening it could destroy whatever's inside. Kozlov answers without looking away from the hatch. We are not here to preserve. We are here to uncover. The sergeant nods reluctantly and moves to release the final clamp. But before he can turn the wrench, the entire chamber emits a deep metallic boom, like a massive door slamming somewhere far below. Lantern flames nearly go out. The snow-filled air rushes inward toward the lower hatch. Pavel braces himself, boots sliding half an inch across the metal floor as wind funnels toward the center of the room. Pressure drop, Voronin shouts. Get back, but he's too slow. The sixth clamp snaps upward on its own with a violent metallic crack. Then the circular hatch lifts by itself, just a finger width, but enough to release a sudden burst of warm air that sweeps across the men like the exhale of a furnace. Yeliseyev yells, stumbling back. The lantern in Pavel's hand flickers wildly. The hum beneath the floor grows louder, steadier, like an engine coming into alignment. Kozlov raises his voice above the noise. Hold positions. Do not fire unless ordered. The hatch remains open, only a sliver, but from the dark gap beneath it, Pavel sees something dim and vague, a faint orange glow, pulsing in rhythm with the sound. Voronin kneels again, eyes wide. This isn't fuel. This isn't steam. It's mechanical kinetic energy. Something is moving down there intentionally. Pavel steps next to him. Major, if this is Soviet, where are the schematics? If this is German, where's the insignia? This makes no sense. Kozlov finally turns to them. Some projects never made it into official records. You mean black programs? Pavel whispers. You mean classified prototypes? Kozlov doesn't answer. Instead, he nods toward the lower hatch. We're going down. Silence grips the chamber. Even the mechanical thrum seems to pause for a fraction of a second, as if the structure itself is listening. Pavel speaks carefully. Major, we don't know what's below. The access ladder might be corroded. The atmosphere could be toxic. This could be a sealed reactor compartment. Voronin nods quickly. He's right. There could be chemical residue or pressure alarms. Kozlov cuts them off. Men of the Red Army do not fear the unknown. Pavel meets his gaze, unflinching. Men of the Red Army do not walk into death blindly, either. Kozlov's jaw tightens. For a moment, Pavel expects the major to snap, to threaten arrest, to assert NKVD authority. Instead, the major turns away, kneels at the hatch and peers into the glow. His voice lowers, barely audible. Someone built this, someone sealed it, someone hid it, and someone intended to return. A long pause follows. Then lanterns ready, rope secured. Sergeant Voronin, open the hatch fully. Voronin hesitates, then grips the edge with both hands. The metal lifts smoothly, with no grinding or resistance, as if pressure deep below has already taken over the work. The hatch swings open. A breath of warm, dust-scented air washes over them. The glow strengthens. A vertical shaft descends into darkness. No ladder, no rungs, only a smooth inner wall and the faint orange light pulsing like a heartbeat from far below. Pavel feels every instinct in his body screaming a warning. But behind him, Koslov gives the order. Lieutenant Sidorov, your first March 4th, 1943, 00:47 hours. A heavy silence clings to the chamber as Pavel Sidorov stands at the lip of the open shaft. The faint orange glow rising from the depths dances against the curved steel walls, giving everything an unreal, submerged quality, as though they are standing inside the hull of a ship sunk beneath the Arctic ice. But nothing about this feels nautical. No rivets, no welding seams, no markings, only seamless metal, warm to the touch, humming with a slow mechanical pulse that feels almost alive. Pavel tests the rope anchored to a reinforced ceiling rib. It holds firm. He wraps it twice around his forearm. His breath fogs the air as he leans over the opening. The shaft descends vertically, disappearing after several meters into a deeper orange haze. No ladder, no footholds, only smooth metal walls. How deep, Yeliseyev asks under his breath. Pavel squints. 20 meters, maybe more. Voronin leans close beside him. This shaft wasn't meant for people. It's an access port for machinery. Pavel nods grimly, which means we're not supposed to be here. Behind them, Major Koslov's tone is calm and cold. Lieutenant, now. Pavel grips the rope and swings one leg into the shaft, boots scraping against the curved wall. The warmth intensifies immediately. The air below carries the scent of dust, aged lubricant, and something metallic he can't quite place. He lowers himself steadily, the rope whispering against his gloves. The hum beneath him feels stronger now, still soft, still distant, but unmistakably regular, mechanical, and deliberate. 10 meters down, the walls shift subtly. Pavel blinks. The metal is no longer smooth. It has faint horizontal striations, almost like ribs, running around the circumference. Reinforcement rings, pressure collars, something meant to withstand enormous stress. He descends another meter. The glow brightens. The space opens below. A chamber, bigger than the one above. He calls upward. I see a floor 5 meters more. His boots touch down on warm steel. The vibration of the floor plates runs up his legs. It feels like standing on the hull of a running engine. Pavel lowers the lantern. The room reveals itself, piece by piece, a circular, lower bay, with 3 enormous cylindrical structures arranged in a triangular pattern, each the height of a man and connected by thick pipes and conduits that disappear into the walls. At the center sits a metal column rising waist-high, topped with a rotary dial and a glass-covered gauge. The gauge's needle trembles in tiny, rhythmic movements. Pressure, vacuum, something between. Footsteps echo above as the rope shivers. Yeliseyev coming down next. The corporal lands beside Pavel, wiping sweat from his brow despite the warm air. It's like a boiler room, he mutters, but wrong. Voronin arrives moments later, eyes wide, expression shifting from awe to confusion as he circles one of the cylinders. This isn't steam machinery. These joints, look at them. They're flexible couplings. But the alloy, this is decades beyond anything we have, or the Germans. Pavel examines the central column. The gauge is old decades, but the glass is uncracked, the metal free of corrosion. He taps the side. The needle flickers. This thing has been operating for a long time, on its own. Voronin runs his gloved finger along a conduit, self-regulating, completely mechanical, no electrical input. Yeliseyev asks, so what powers it? Pavel's gaze moves across the floor. There are small vents along the base of the cylinders. Warm air flows outward, steady and controlled. Heat exchange, Pavel whispers. A thermal system. something maintaining temperature. But why, Voronin asks quietly. What needs to be kept warm at all times in a buried chamber? The rope above shifts again. Koslov descends, boots hitting the floor with a metallic thud. He sweeps the lantern's beam across the room. His expression reveals no surprise, only calculation. Lieutenant, report. Pavel gestures around them. These are thermal cylinders. They're active, still generating heat, still maintaining internal pressure, Voronin adds. And whatever they're regulating is underneath us. Koslov steps toward the central column. He examines the gauge, then the dial, then the pipes, as though trying to match them with something he knows. There were classified engineering programs in Leningrad before the war, he says softly. Deep buried facilities, experimentation with sealed environments, long-duration survival chambers. Pavel stares at him. Major, are you saying this could be one of those? Koslov doesn't answer. Instead, he crouches and runs his hand along the floor plates. This design, none of it matches Soviet engineering. Not naval, not industrial, not NKVD. Voronin's voice breaks the silence. Major, you need to see this. He stands at the far end of the bay, pointing to a recess in the wall. Pavel brings the lantern closer. There, half hidden behind a tangle of conduits, is another hatch, smaller, rectangular, built into the floor, a maintenance port, a final compartment. The metal is warmest here. Koslov approaches slowly. When he kneels, Pavel notices a small detail. The hinges of the hatch are newer than the surrounding metal, replaced at some point, maintained. Voronin's voice is barely a whisper. Major, someone opened this recently. Pavel feels the weight of the words settle in the air. Recently, meaning not in 1941, not in 1939, not in 1920. Recently, as in within months of their arrival. Kozlov's expression darkens. Tools, he orders. We open this now. As Voronin prepares the wrenches, Pavel steps back, lantern trembling in his hand. The hum beneath the floor changes pitch for the first time just slightly. A subtle upward shift, like metal reacting to a new presence. Not random, not accidental. A response. From the hatch, March 4th, 1943. 12 hours. The hum beneath the floor shifts again. Subtle, but deliberate, like a tuning fork vibrated by an unseen hand. Pavel Sidorov steadies his lantern, while Voronin kneels at the small rectangular hatch embedded in the floor. The warmth radiating from the metal intensifies as the mechanic sergeant loosens the bolts one by one. These bolts, unlike anything else in the structure, are visibly newer, edges sharp, threading clean, no corrosion at all. Someone maintained this hatch recently. Someone accessed whatever lies beneath. Koslov stands motionless behind them, hands clasped firmly behind his back. The Major's shadow stretches across the chamber floor, distorted by the orange glow pulsing from below. Yeliseyev grips his rifle, not aiming it at anything, but holding it tight the way a man holds a lifeline in a storm. Lieutenant, he whispers, what if we're not supposed to open this? Pavel answers quietly. We weren't supposed to open any of it, but orders are orders. The final bolt loosens with a metallic snap. Voronin exhales, placing both hands on the edge of the hatch, ready. He looks to Koslov. The Major lowers himself slowly, inspecting the hatch with a precision that suggests he is comparing it to something he has seen before, maybe a classified schematic, maybe a rumour whispered in corridors of the Second Directorate, maybe nothing at all. His voice is low, open it carefully, slow as possible. Voronin nods and begins lifting the hatch. It moves smoothly, too smoothly, gliding upward on nearly frictionless hinges. A stream of warm air rises, carrying with it a faint metallic smell, mixed with something organic, something that makes Pavel's skin prickle. He leans forward, lantern lowered. The light pours into the opening. At first he sees nothing but a deeper shaft. Then the lantern light catches something. Metal curved, segmented, like a protective casing or shell. Voronin angles his lantern. That's a cylinder. Pavel narrows his eyes. Not just a cylinder, more like a capsule, a sealed metal pod lying horizontally in a recess beneath the floor. Pipes feed into its sides. Cables wrap around its middle. The surface is smooth like the upper hull, but faintly scratched, as though tools had been used on it multiple times. Koslov crouches beside them. His voice barely hides tension. "This is not a boiler, not a generator," Pavel asks softly. "Then what is it?" The Major's eyes trace every joint, every seam, every port. "A containment vessel." The word settles heavily in the warm air. Voronin swallows. "Pressure vessel, chemical storage." Koslov shakes his head. "No, something else." His hesitation tells Pavel more than the words themselves. Whatever Koslov expected to find here, this capsule is not it, or it is. And he hoped it wasn't. Pavel brings his lantern closer to the pod. The metal surface is warm, not hot, but warmer than the surrounding machinery, pulsing with the same rhythm as the hum beneath the floor. He wipes dust from a small rectangular indentation on the pod's surface, a viewport number 2 small, a label plate. Possibly. He scratches away more grime until faint engraving emerges, not Cyrillic, not Latin, but a series of lines and angles unfamiliar to him. Voronin leans closer. "What language is that?" Pavel shakes his head. "I don't know if it's a language at all." The hum increases in volume just slightly, enough for the men to feel it more than hear it. The floor vibrates beneath their boots. Then a soft click echoes through the chamber. The pod shudders. Yeliseyev jumps back, rifle raised. Pavel holds out a hand. "Don't fire." Nothing indicates the pod shudders again. More forcefully. A faint plume of warm vapor escapes from a seam near the top, curling upward in a slow spiral. The smell intensifies: metal, dust, and something else. Something like old cloth or leather, long sealed away. Voronin steps back, voice trembling despite himself. "Major, this capsule is pressurized. If it opens suddenly, it won't," Koslov says, though he sounds uncertain. Another click. The seam along the top of the pod widens by a millimeter, then another, then another. The pod is unlocking itself. Yeliseyev steps away, boots scraping across the floor plates. Pavel moves closer, instinctively. Every part of him wants to retreat, but something deeper pushes him forward. If this is dangerous, he must see it first. If it's important, he must understand it. Voronin mutters. Something inside is activating, reacting to air-light movement. Koslov's hand drifts toward his pistol holster. "Stay calm," he orders, but his voice lacks the usual NKVD hardness. The seam widens until it forms a narrow slit. Warm vapor hisses out. The glow reflecting off the vapor casts an eerie silhouette across the ceiling, distorted and writhing. Pavel lifts his lantern higher. The light strikes the interior of the opening. Something is inside. Not machinery, not wiring, not gears. Fabric, a sleeve, a strap, padding. The edge of what looks unmistakably like a harness or restraint system designed to secure something human-sized. Voronin's voice is barely audible. "Major, this is a personnel capsule." Koslov says nothing. The last latch pops free with a soft metallic clink. The pod lid rises a few centimeters on its own, tilting upward as warm air spills out of the dark interior. Pavel's heart pounds, not in fear, but in an awful anticipation. What lies inside is not visible yet. Only the edge, only the fabric, only the harness, only the shape. But one thing is certain. Whoever sealed this pod did not intend for it to remain buried forever. March 4th, 1943. And 29 hours. Warm vapor spills from the opening pod, drifting upward in long twisting ribbons that shimmer in the orange glow. The metal lid rises a fraction more, slow and deliberate, as though equalizing pressure inside after a very long sleep. Pavel Sidorov steadies his lantern. The others hold their breath. The harness, the clipped fabric straps, the padded interior, every detail confirms this was built for a person. But why hide a human-sized chamber beneath a sealed, unknown installation in the Arctic wilderness? And why would it still be warm? The lid lifts enough for Pavel to angle the lantern inside. Light spills into the darkness. Shadows recede, and the truth finally reveals itself. A body, human, wrapped in a thick, insulated suit of an unfamiliar design. Nothing alien, nothing impossible, nothing outside the reach of wartime experimentation. Just a man sealed in a protective pressure suit, unlike any Pavel has ever seen. Smooth plates, reinforced joints, fabric interwoven with thin metallic fibers. The suit is faded and stiff, years of burial having drained its color. His boots are thick, padded, reinforced at the toe. His gloves are stitched with a precision uncommon in Soviet wartime manufacturing. The helmet, large, round, with a reinforced glass visor, rests over his face, connected by flexible tubing to the rear of the capsule. Voronin's voice breaks the stunned silence. "Major, this is not a flight suit, not a diving suit, not anything I've seen before." Pavel leans closer. Through the frost on the visor, he sees the man's face, a Soviet face, cheeks sunken, skin pale, eyes closed, hair cut in the standard regulation style of the Red Army Air Force, not the Navy. The man is no foreign operative, no German saboteur, no fantasy construct. He is unmistakably one of their own. Koslov slowly removes his glove, wipes the visor clean. The man inside is young, perhaps 30. His face is preserved unnaturally well, the sealed environment having prevented decay. Voronin studies the suit's tubing. This is a pressure system, not for underwater, for altitude, high altitude. Pavel looks sharply at him. But our high-altitude projects, those are in Moscow and Kazan, not Murmansk. Koslov remains silent. Voronin continues. This looks like early pressure suit research, but far more advanced than the 1940 prototypes. Pavel frowns. Then why is it here? And in this facility, the mechanics sergeant points to a reinforced collar around the man's chest. There are mounts here for instrument harnesses, sensors, telemetry. He runs a finger along the capsule's interior. This wasn't a coffin. It was a test chamber. Environmental, vacuum, pressure cycling. Yeliseyev finally finds his voice. "Comrade Lieutenant, are we looking at some kind of experimental high-altitude survival program?" Koslov answers before Pavel can. "Yes." His voice is low but certain. "You are." The major runs a hand across the capsule edge, studying the engineering with a familiarity that alarms Pavel. This was a classified program in the late 1930s, a project to bypass the limitations of high-altitude flight, to test human survival in controlled pressure environments. He looks at the sealed suit. Not all experiments were documented. Some were shut down, moved, buried. Pavel feels a coldness that defies the warm chamber air. "Major, did you know this was here?" Koslov hesitates. That hesitation is the answer. He does know. Or at least, he knew something was buried in the north. He straightens. This man was part of an early stratospheric research project. Before the war, when tensions rose with Germany, all such experiments were relocated and hidden. This facility was built to store prototypes, environmental pods, pressure capsules. He nods toward the walls, and then abandoned when the war began. Voronin shakes his head. Abandoned. Then why is the system still running? Koslov looks at the central control column, its needle still twitching. Because these systems were designed to run autonomously. Long-term environmental stabilization, self-regulating thermal units, mechanical pressure compensation. He meets Pavel's eyes. Some programs prepared for long-duration isolation. Years, if necessary. Pavel steps back, processing the implications. So this facility was never meant to be found. Koslov's voice tightens, correct. Yeliseyev glances at the body. Was he alive when buried? Koslov shakes his head once. No, most likely he died during the final test cycle. They preserved him to study the failure, but when the war began, priorities changed. They sealed the facility and moved on. He looks to the pod again, and they never returned. The hum beneath them softens, as though responding to the disturbance. The chamber grows still. Voronin asks, "Major, what now?" Koslov gives a single answer. "We seal this immediately." Pavel stares at him. "Seal it after what we found. This is evidence history technology, decades ahead." Koslov cuts him off sharply. "And it is classified beyond your clearance. None of you will report this. None of you will speak of it. This facility was never meant to be opened." His voice lowers. Some truths are buried because they must remain buried. Pavel looks at the pod one last time. The preserved face behind the visor, the suit, the chamber, the abandoned secret. Not fantasy, not science fiction, just a forgotten Soviet experiment lost, buried, abandoned and resurfacing only by accident of war. Koslov turns away. Close the hatch, we leave before dawn. As the men begin resealing the pod, Pavel realizes one final thing. The machine beneath the snow was never meant to frighten. It was meant to be forgotten.